And I remember looking and going, well, no, I can't see the curve, and all this kind of thing. And I was with my dad. Yeah, I know, you laugh. Okay, fair enough.
Eric Dubay spends a lot of money on his videos, and he actually uses hypnosis techniques.
Do you think they believe what they're saying?
No, I don't know.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't believe it. No, I don't believe Eric Dubay believes the Earth is flat.
Yeah, it's definitely a religion. It's definitely a cult.
So, what have you got in mind for today, Jack?
Well, then, today I would like to talk about. I'd like to talk about flat Earth because I love talking about flat Earth. And on the 1,000 words, I usually bring it up, but I sort of bring it up really as a way to explore how we engage with each other when we disagree with people. So I tend to bring it up as an example of that because I think the discourse around it says a lot about really where people are at in their mental approach to discovering truth. I don't know if that makes sense. Because there's a lot of conflict and there's a lot of people who struggle to have a calm, rational exchange with someone that they have a difference of opinion with. Yeah. And I think that's a real shame because I think most people are well-intentioned, but we're all susceptible to deception still. None of us are perfect. We all get things wrong. But I think it's really important that we have humility and that we learn how to engage with each other. Now, we're on the, I'm pretty sure we're on the very similar, if not the same page with regards to flat Earth. So I don't usually get the chance just to explore the topic in and of itself. So I'd quite like to do that just for a laugh. And I think it'd be interesting for people who might be on the fence, people who are open-minded, because I always say it's good that I always admire people who are willing to go there. Now, because a lot of what we might call normal people would just rubbish it immediately, wouldn't they? They'd be like, idiot, you think the Earth the Earth's flat? Don't be so stupid. And yet they might not know why they're saying that. And I think that is a problem. I actually admire people who are willing to look at it, be open-minded, sit with the possibility that it is when you don't know, because that's where I was at. I was like, okay, there are so many lies out there that who knows? So let's look at it. I had friends telling me they were convinced. They were pointing me to videos, and I was looking at them. I was going, okay, well, that's interesting. And I sat with it for a bit. And, I remember walking on the downs with my wife and my dad and looking out over the sea. And you could see a big expanse, and I remember looking and going, well, no, I can't see the curve, and all this kind of thing. and I was with my dad. Yeah, I know, you laugh. Okay, fair enough. And I was with my dad, and I remember thinking, if I really think the Earth is flat, if I really think it's a possibility, what would my dad say, for example? And my dad's pretty smart. I love him. He's great. He's quite open-minded. But, I went in my mind, I sort of played it out, and I thought, well, he'd probably say this, he'd probably say that. And I thought, well, rather than go through that process, I'll do that myself. I'll ask those questions myself, and I'll put myself in that position of someone, a skeptic, and I think, I actually think this is what a lot of people who get swept up in beliefs like the flat Earth don't do. I think they go from what they think they know, i.e., it's a globe, but they don't really know it. They think they know it's a globe, to the counter narrative, it's flat, and they think, okay, I found the truth now, because they lie about everything. So now, therefore, this seems feasible, and I've watched this Eric Dubay video, and it seems to make sense. And then what they don't seem to do is then dive back in and explore the reality of it and actually challenge themselves. And I suppose the fact, and I did that, I challenged where I was going into this belief system, and I very quickly, like probably within 2 or 3 weeks, realized it was completely bogus. It was bunk. It had every argument could be easily disproved, dismissed. Okay, there's still things which you go, yeah, maybe that's strange, but it takes a little bit of explaining, but you dive deeper and you go, okay, that makes sense. So that was my kind of journey. So I'm not ridiculing flat earthers. I do take issue with a lot of their approaches a lot of the time. I think they make fools of themselves because they're so abusive a lot of the time. Not all of them, but the vocal ones can be. They're abusive, they're dismissive, they're arrogant, classic Dunning-Kruger kind of examples, where they think they know things and they really haven't looked at it properly.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you relate to that. You probably,
Well,
go on.
I started from a different place, actually, to be honest.
Go on.
I never entertained the idea as being true. Uh, I was interested in it, and only because I felt that the people who believed in the flat Earth were misinformed and being misguided and lied to by fake videos. And that was the reason that I got into it, is because I wanted to disprove the notion in a simple way that made sense to everyone. And what I found actually was quite intriguing. It became an exercise, a mental exercise for me.
Yeah.
I found it intriguing to try and discover a way of explaining that the Earth was not flat to people, and it was really actually quite difficult.
Hmm.
I was surprised. I thought that I would watch the first video, make a few notes, and that would be the end of it, and everyone would see the sense. But when I watch the videos, the way the videos are presented is very clever. They're extremely well made. Eric Dubay spends a lot of money on his videos, and he actually uses hypnosis techniques within them. So that was something that I discovered. I'm a hypnotherapist, and
Can you give us a few examples there? I would guess repetition is one of them, but
repetition, the music, and
yeah,
the way the visuals are presented. They all work together to as hypnotherapy, hypnosis techniques, hypnotic techniques, and they're
yeah,
anchored. He anchors them very cleverly. He anchors them. He anchors these techniques into the discoveries that everyone makes when they're looking into things that they've been lied to about.
yeah.
It's very clever how it's done. He's very accomplished at what he does. And as too are all of the people that make flat Earth videos. They are very accomplished at what they do.
Can I ask you, Len, do you think they believe what they're saying?
No, I don't know.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't believe it. No, no, I don't believe Eric Dubé believes the Earth is flat. I spoke to him on Facebook, and he blocks me. He won't. He won't answer any questions. He says. I spoke to him about Peter Island. That's it, Peter Island. How can the sun be over Peter Island for 24 hours, and yet it's over the other side of the world, and at the same time, and they've got sunlight in New Zealand? So how does that work?
Yeah.
And his own answer is that everyone in Peter Island is lying.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So for
he
those
doesn't
who
believe it.
no, for those who I might edit in now a picture of the generally accepted flat Earth model. For those who are sort of, I think this video will be of interest to people who are perhaps like me a few 2 or 3 years ago, who are interested and they want a sort of counterbalance. This video won't be probably of interest to anyone who is a believer in the flat Earth, if they are a believer rather than a genuine truth seeker, because there are a number of people who just get attached to beliefs, and I've tried to debate with them, and they are absolutely stubborn as a mule. They won't shift their position. They won't even try and understand your premise. They're so stuck. So this
It's
isn't
like a
really.
religion.
It is definitely a religion. It's definitely a cult.
Mm.
This isn't really for them. Although you never know. You know, might be able to pull some back, but it's really for people who are kind of in the middle, who might not know. And I think this is how it gets people, because they don't really know. They don't really know the globe model. And I say I didn't really know the globe model, because I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm a paint, I paint pictures. I'm not, I at school, I kind of, I fell into that trap of because science was presented in such a dull way. I mean, I actually love science now, but that kind of binary mind, you shove down the artistic sort of path and the English and art, and I didn't really study science, which is a shame, because I would have been interested if it had been presented in a slightly different way. So I didn't, to be honest, I didn't really know the globe model, I have to admit. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong. They think they know the globe model, and they think this is, the standard approach, and we've all been brainwashed since birth. I don't think people actually know it. So when something comes along, there's an alternative. They don't really have any counterbalance to it.
No, they don't know how to test it.
No, they don't know how to test it. So the standard flat Earth model, as you were saying there, you presented evidence to Eric Dubay, and we both know that when you present evidence to, let's call them a believer, and we'll separate the flat Earth believer from a flat Earth researcher. Let's use those two, if that's fair, if you think that's good, because you've got believers who are essentially, in a religion. They're not necessarily the bad people. They might genuinely believe it. They think they're doing a good thing. They're not even stupid. I'm not saying they're stupid either. People can get drawn into.
They're not stupid. No,
No,
that's a mistake. They're not stupid at all. They're actually quite clever people. And
oh well, hang on, Len, because I'm talking about people who believe in what the Dubays and the Flat Earth Daves are saying. I'm not talking about I'm not specifically talking about people like Dubay and Flat Earth. I know they're clever. I'm not 100% sure. I met Flat Earth Dave at Sounds Beautiful 2 years ago, and I was wearing a t-shirt which said "The Earth isn't flat, changed my mind," and I knew he was talking. He was giving a talk there.
Yeah.
And I waved at him and said, "All right, Dave, what do you reckon about the t-shirt?" And he came over, and he was so rude, so confrontational.
That's a
But
shame.
I would struggle, Len. I have to say, I would struggle to believe with conviction that he doesn't believe what he says. I just don't know how he could be so emotionally articulate. I mean, not articulate in the sense that he expresses himself well, but he presents himself like someone who's passionate about it.
Yeah.
And it would blow my mind if I thought he actually was on a complete 100% grift.
Yeah. Okay. But is he the one who spent £25,000 on a laser gyro?
I don't think so. Flat Earth Dave is the guy who wears the cap. Yeah, you'd know him if you saw him anyway. Very rude. Got very aggressive and wouldn't listen to a word I was saying. And I found it really frustrating. So, okay, we've got the cult leaders, then we've got the believers, and then we've got the researchers. So that's someone like, someone who's skirting around the edge. They're going, "Oh, this is interesting. I know COVID was a scam. I know they're lying about COVID. I know 9/11 was an inside job. Maybe they're lying about flat Earth. Let's have a look." So they're the researchers. And they're the people who I've got a lot of friends in that camp. So how do we approach it? Because you can't argue with a believer. I mean, it's a bit like religion. You present facts about
what evidence you present. They're not going to believe it.
No. So
and
let's
the videos give them a viable counter.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
that's the issue, is that this is why the videos are so clever. They present a viable counter that if you don't understand the real world properly, you have no way of testing it in your mind, and you believe the flat earth version of the world because it's presented in such a clever way, and it's anchored into the conspiracies that we all know are true, the conspiracies that are true, like you're saying with 9/11 and stuff like that. When you watch the Eric Dubay and the videos from the others, when I watch them from a hypnotherapist perspective, I can see how it is that these the viable counters are anchored into the conspiracies, and most people watch videos when they're doing nothing in the evening. And to be quite honest with you, that's exactly how hypnosis works, how hypnotherapy works. You put the person into a state of daydreaming, and then you insert um, ideas into the subconscious. And the subconscious, once the idea goes into the subconscious, it's really hard to move it. It becomes an internal part of the person. So the worst thing you can do to yourself is watch one of these videos late at night when you're half dozing, because you will naturally go into that state where your subconscious becomes open to these suggestions.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. It's very true. It's very true. I mean, Dubay is a master of that hypnotic. You know, the music is soft and sensual and sort of,
Yeah,
you know, foreboding almost, and then
yeah.
uplifting and all this kind of stuff. And
That's right. At the
yeah,
moment, when he brings the idea to its full expose, then the music changes, and he speaks in
lifts.
a monotone uh, accent right the way through.
Yeah,
These are all hypnotic techniques.
they are. They are, and it's the same techniques that the BBC use. I remember watching. We don't have a TV, but during when the first marches hit London, and we put on the BBC News just to see if it had been reported that day, that evening, and it's the height of COVID, and the first 10 minutes of the news was this crazy, crazy example of hypnosis. It was almost, the Scandi dramas that were popular about 10 years ago, where they were kind of like set in Scandinavia, and there were murder mysteries, but they were really moody and dark, and they'd have this sort of
Yeah,
foreboding light. The lighting was dark, and you know and they had this 10-minute piece set in a hospital following this family, and the dad was on death's door, and then he died, and then they interviewed the kids afterwards, and all the way through it was done like a drama. It was done like one of these Scandi dramas. There was mood lighting in the hospital.
yeah, right.
There was this drone of this musical drone all the way,
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
way through, and we were watching it going, "Whoa, this!" I hadn't watched the news for a few years. Wow, is this what they're doing? This is like, and my wife just said, we watched it, and she went, "My God, I feel like I've just had a spliff." I'm like, it was like she was stoned watching it. It
yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah,
it was like, my God.
yeah,
And these are the techniques that the mainstream use, but they're also the techniques that the second matrix, what I call the second
yeah,
matrix, or what Neil Kramer dubbed the second matrix, it's a term that I quite like, is like this second, it's like what catches you when you fall out the first matrix. It
yeah,
catches you.
yeah,
Oh, we could take care of you.
yeah, yeah,
you know
yeah.
and there's a whole load of BS there just to keep you confused and distracted from. For me, the essence is sovereignty, is our relationship with spirit, with truth, with all the essentials. Anyway, sidetrack slightly. What would you say to someone who might be? Let's talk about that group of people who might be on the edge, looking in. They're the ones. They're the ones who might be open to a bucket of water thrown in their face, like slapped out of the before
To
they get
wake up.
sucked in. Wake up. What's your? Because I've got a couple of arguments that I use. What's your if you do engage with these kind of people, or if you do try and present arguments for people who might look like they're going to get sucked in, what would be your key things to look at? Any short tools that you use that your
Well,
favorites?
the obvious one is the 24 hours in the poles. There's 24-hour daylight in the poles. So how can that happen? It can't happen. It's impossible. It can only happen on a globe. And there's a few things that can only happen on a globe. And I've noticed that since look, I've been talking about this for quite a long time on Facebook and other places, and obviously not since I was banned from
Oh
Facebook.
yeah, you were completely banned, weren't you?
Yeah,
We'll talk
but
about why that might be
yeah,
in a bit.
it was nothing to do with flat Earth.
No, not flat Earth.
No, you don't get banned for
No,
telling silly stories about. So no one has ever said, "Oh, I got a 30-day ban for telling the truth about flat Earth." No, that doesn't
no, and
happen.
neither have they got banned for counteracting it.
No.
And that's because I feel they absolutely love the debate raging.
Yes.
They they
Yes.
love they love the loosh. I think they get a lot of loosh from this friction and conflict.
Yeah,
Um,
it's used as a way of discrediting the truth that people are talking about. That's my impression of it.
I
What the flat Earth idea, what it's really about. They
I
they they use it as a way to they insert it into all sorts of places where the truth is being spoken about, like chemtrail pages and government politic pages and all of these places where the truth is being told, then flat Earth gets inserted into those places to discredit what's being said in those places. So I've seen a lot of chemtrail pages be taken over by admin who then start to promote the flat Earth idea.
yep
And I've been banned from loads and loads of chemtrail pages. Before I got a lifetime ban from Facebook, I was banned from loads and loads of chemtrail pages because when I saw what they were doing, I called it straight away.
yeah
And because I had a lot of information about the different ideas that flat earthers have, I was able to counter pretty much every one of them in the end.
yeah
I saved up lots and lots of information that counters pretty much all of the information. And the admin of the pages didn't like the idea that I was discrediting them because they were there f f from where I'm coming from. They were there on purpose to insert the flat Earth idea into the pages. So the last thing they wanted was someone like me saying how it is that they've got everything wrong.
yeah. I think you might be right. That I mean I call it a psyop. Now whether flat Earth is a psyop um, initiated by the powers that be, or whether it's just something that has evolved and they love it.
Yeah,
I
it
don't know.
wasn't initiated by them. No, it was its origin is really quite strange because it has its origin in scientists arguing about this and that and the other, and they use the canal. I can't think of the name of it. Something
Bedford,
level,
is it the
Bedford
Bedford?
level. That's it.
Yeah,
The Bedford level experiment, where but they redid the Bedford level experiment, and they found that it did curve.
yeah.
So, but the people that wanted to believe in the flat Earth back in them days, I don't
We're
know when that
talking
was.
1800s, I think,
Yeah,
1880s or something like that.
1800s, something like that. Yeah. So
Rowbottom, I think his name was Rowbottom, wasn't it?
yeah, that's it. And so it's been going on for a long time. It wasn't invented. It's not a new invention, but it's
No,
something that is used because it's an available product.
yes. I suppose what I meant was when I said initiated, it was the wrong word. What I meant was actively promoted or just allow, it's a bit like with 9/11, my hop and lie hop, wasn't it? Let it happen on purpose or made it happen on purpose.
Yeah, yeah,
So was there a meeting where they said, you know, what can we promote? And they dug up the flat earth nonsense,
yeah.
or did it just evolve out of people genuinely wanting, genuinely exploring life,
No,
and then
I think it was something that they actively promoted. They wanted something to take down the truth movement, and the flat Earth idea was absolutely perfect because
yeah,
it was another conspiracy, but it was the one that everyone once you are able to figure things out, you can figure out that it's an untruth. So
very very quickly.
Yeah, it's within the truth movement, but it's an untruth, and it's one that
Yeah.
should be discounted. So that's why it is that it's promoted to such a level, because they want new people. They, if someone, the last thing they want is people finding out about the 9/11, or people finding out about chemtrails, what the actual reality of them is. So they encourage the flat Earth psyop, and they encouraged it into those areas, so that it could be used as a way of discounting the truth within them subjects.
Yeah. I created a little meme a couple of years ago. It said flat earth costs lives, and it's underneath it just explains the logic of that being, let's take Mr. Smith. He comes along, someone tells him, oh, you don't want to take that dangerous jab, it might not do you much good. Okay, he goes home, he mulls it over, Google, does a bit of research, finds someone saying the jabs aren't good. Oh, they're also a flat earther.
Yeah,
Mr.
exactly.
Smith, who's pretty smart, open-minded to an extent, sees this flat earth guy also saying the jabs are dangerous, goes, well, if those two things are connected, if it's the same guy, this is obviously nuts. So
Yeah,
that and then he dismisses the genuine information
yeah.
that might that
Discredit
might actually
by
that might actually save his life.
yeah,
So
yeah,
although I've got a friend who would definitely counter that logic. He would say, well, ultimately, Mr. Smith is totally responsible for his own, and I agree. I agree largely. You shouldn't dismiss something by connection, but the reality is people do,
people do. Yeah,
and
it's discredit by association.
yeah.
It's
So I think it is dangerous. I think I would probably agree that it's definitely been promoted, even if not initially promoted, but definitely I think it helps. I mean, I remember the hit piece on Sounds Beautiful Festival came out in the Times or the Telegraph. I think it was the Times actually, and they did a little piece about Sounds Beautiful, the Truther Festival down in Dorset, which is a beautiful festival. Encourage everyone to go next year. Get your tickets. Early bird tickets available. Uh, if you look at the article that they released in the Times trying to discredit everyone, the first thing they wrote was "Sounds Beautiful," the Glastonbury alternative for Putin lovers and flat earthers.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Of course,
So yeah. So
and
there it is. It's doing its job.
it's doing its job.
Yeah.
It's doing its job, and I find it fascinating. So, um, going back to your evidence there, we talked about how could you have a 24-hour sun in, was it Peter's Island?
At Peter Island. Yeah.
Peter Island, and then also New Zealand. So if you were to look at a flat Earth map, which is essentially the UN map, is it the UN map? Or is it? Yeah, I think it's the
Mercator. They
UN.
call it a Mercator map, is it?
Yeah, essentially, which is just a way of flattening out the globe, so that every two-dimensional map is some kind of representation of a three-dimensional globe.
Yeah.
We're talking about mainstream
Yeah.
acceptance if we go with the globe model. So every 2D map. So you can either do that on the one that you put on the wall. The one you put on the wall tends to be a kind of oblong, and you stretch it out so that you've got this shape. The UN use a different kind which fits a circle, so it's basically just pulled out, like the skin of a football, and it's pulled out and stretched to create a circle, and that's generally what they use as a flat Earth mop. It's about as much use. It's not, in fact, it's not as much use as a mop, but that's generally what they use. And they often point to the fact, oh well, the UN, it's in plain sight. Look at them
Yeah.
mocking us.
Yeah.
This is the map.
Yeah.
If you look at that map, you see. I mean, I'm not trying to sound poncy here, but as someone who's visually, I'm interested in visuals, you can see immediately that it's stretched on the
Yeah.
outer perimeter.
Yeah.
Because all of the
It actually tells you on the map. If you look on the if you get the original map from and you look in the corner, it will tell you what the purpose of the map, and it's they tell you that it's stretched on purpose to give a time zone
Yeah,
relationship of the Earth. So
yeah,
it's not meant. If you look around the outside of the map, and all of the countries around the outside are like 5 times bigger than they should
yes,
really be.
yeah, and that in itself is huge evidence that it's nonsense, because there are people who live in Australia and there are people who drive across Australia,
Yeah,
and it takes them
absolutely.
a certain amount of time and it takes them a certain amount of petrol, and then they
Yeah,
drive up and down Australia and it takes them a certain amount of time. So Australia is shaped roughly like that.
yeah, yeah,
It's not shaped like this, because
yeah,
someone living in
exactly.
Australia would quite quickly work out that the
I've only got
distances
halfway down.
don't match.
Yeah,
You know,
I've only got halfway down. I've run out
yeah,
of
I've only
food.
got halfway there. Um, and obviously visually, you can see obviously they've stretched it on that map to fit a circle, so they can use it on an emblem or visually
Yeah,
it's a design, it's a logo, or originally it was the Mercator, is it Mercator
yeah.
map? You know,
It was
it's just a way of representing a globe on a 2D surface. I mean,
yeah,
so you
and
so
it was done like that so they could. Uh, its specific purpose is to enable the time zones to
yeah,
be seen.
yeah, yeah. So for anyone sort of interested in this, look at that, see if it makes sense. And what Len is saying is that what you'll see is Peter's Island. Oh, so should explain for people who don't really know, that the outer perimeter of that map is the ice, is commonly referred to as the ice wall, and that is the actual perimeter of
Antarctica, yeah,
Antarctica. So
the edge,
Antarctica stretches all the way around the edge, and then the
yeah,
North Pole is in the middle.
yeah,
So you basically stretched everything out around the edge,
yeah,
pulled it around, and then you've got this. So New Zealand would be on the opposite side of that. And the basic flat Earth model is that um, the circle of the globe, circle of the Earth, and the sun and the moon kind of circle around it. And here it's daytime, and then here it's nighttime because the sun is so far away you can't see it anymore. Then it comes back around, you get daytime. Okay,
yeah,
so the flat Earth model depends upon the sun being very close, because if the sun was way up here, it would be daylight everywhere.
yeah,
So it has to be quite close in order for it to move and create a kind of um, funnel of light, which creates
yeah.
daytime as it goes round. That is incredibly flawed, but we won't go into the details of why that's flawed. What we can do
Well,
later in a minute.
it's one of the ways that I proved that the Earth is not flat. Actually,
Go on
is
then.
by using the by triangulating the position of the sun. So if you can access triangle calculators online. They're quite easy, and you need three numbers
Yeah,
for it to work. So if you plot the angle of the sun in the sky, let's say it's 30 degrees,
yeah,
and let's say it's midday, you know midday on the 30th of June that the sun is directly over the tropics,
yeah,
and you know how far away the tropics is. So we from where you are, so you've got one number there. That's the distance from your your house to the tropics, and you know that the sun is directly above that. That's another angle. That's a 90-degree angle directly above the tropics, and then you can then work out the height of the sun,
yeah.
and it comes to 3,500 miles.
That's right.
That's why it is that they use that number. See, they're very,
Yeah,
very clever at what they've done.
yeah,
What they don't expect people to do is to then plot it every hour and see where it is that you 1 hour later it's moved 15 degrees round, and you know how far away that is now from you because you know where that is above, but still above the tropics, but just
yeah,
15 degrees further round.
yeah,
And yet the sun is now lower down in on the horizon, but it hasn't got
yeah.
further away. So by about 8 o'clock in the evening, the sun crashes into the sea.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I know it doesn't.
No.
That was the example I tried to use with Dave, but he just wasn't getting it.
No,
There's
it's a bit unfortunate. It's unfortunate people were not able. See, this is as you said earlier, people don't have the full understanding of the globe system,
no,
so they don't actually know how to test it properly.
no, that's
And
right.
yeah, so the other thing that I discovered very quickly was that the stars in the north turn clockwise and the stars in the south anti-clockwise, or whichever way around it is. It doesn't matter because it's the opposite way. Whether it be in the north
Yeah,
and the south, it's the other way.
yeah,
So now I see that they started to use a prism, and on their flat Earth idea, they've inserted a prism so that it shows the stars moving any other way. They're very clever at how they counter any argument towards disproving the flat Earth.
yeah,
It's a very clever what they do is very clever, and
yeah,
it can easily hoodwink people
yes,
who are not clued up about the globe model.
yeah.
It,
Because
it, it can
what
easily
they'll,
hoodwink them.
yeah, it can. What they'll do is they'll come up with some unfalsifiable explanation to explain a certain phenomena, uh, and then you move on to something else, and they'll come up with a certain way of explaining that.
Yeah,
But what people don't do is then see if they match, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
they don't match. Yes, you can falsify one thing independently, but it always contradicts some other falsification. So
yeah.
none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense as a whole.
No, they have
Whereas
no working system.
no, they have no working system. They can individually usually find a way of explaining something.
Yeah,
So whether it's whether the sun, which I watch, I'm luckily we live in Brighton, we live near the sea, we watch the sunset, beautiful sunset. You can literally see the sun, sinking, below the, it literally sinks and you see half the sun and then it
yeah.
goes and you just see a tiny bit of the sun. It does not get further and further and smaller and smaller and smaller until it
No,
disappears.
no, it
Um,
doesn't.
you know, and going back to Rowbottom in the 1800s, the essence of that, his philosophical approach, is actually quite admirable and quite worthy, I think, in a way. I think his basic premise was only believe what you can observe, right? And I think there's something to that. That kind of makes sense. I get it, but um, what that doesn't account for is how our eyes can deceive us and how complex situations are. So,
Yeah,
yes, it looks flat. Okay, you stand on a hill, you look out. Of course, it's going to look flat, but that doesn't mean it's flat. You hear people say, "Well, we can't be spinning at 1,000 miles an hour," um, you know, and we would feel it. We'd feel and then you say, "Well, do you feel like you're moving at 500 miles an hour when you're in a plane?"
mm,
So your senses, yes, in some ways, our senses are what we should rely on, but at the same time, we have to abstract. We
yeah.
have to.
But
We
so
have.
the mistake there, Jake, is when they use that idea of spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, is that you don't measure revolutions
Yeah,
in miles per hour. You measure it in revolutions per minute or whatever.
yeah,
And the Earth is actually spinning one revolution per day.
exactly. Yeah,
And that is such a slow amount that the centrifugal force would not lift people off the ground.
yeah,
You don't fly off into space. If you
yeah.
put something if you put a record on a turntable, and you put water on the record and you spun it one revolution a day, the water wouldn't move.
Hmm.
It's not spinning. It's not spinning at 1,000 miles an hour.
No,
That is inserted into the equation by people who know that others are not able to figure out how you measure revolutions.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things like that where a little bit of truth is used just to sow enough incredulity that the average person who's not vigilant will, start to question things.
Yeah.
And that's the tactic I see. And also
So when you said earlier, Jake, about you should be trusting your eyes, you should be trusted. So I have this conversation with flat earthers many times. So they say you should only trust what you see, and okay. So what do you see when you watch a sunset over the ocean? We all see the same thing. I actually bought a P900 Nikon P900 camera when I went on a holiday on a cruise one year,
mm,
and I made a video showing the sun setting below the ocean and the sun rising. And when you zoom in with one of them P900s, you can get a really good image of the sun as it comes up above the sea. And also, what I discovered is that you can zoom in on boats that are on the horizon, and with the naked eye, you can't see them.
yeah,
They're so far away that you can't see them, and you
yeah.
can zoom in, and you can make it look like they're coming back into focus,
This is it,
because you're
Len.
zooming in.
This is the grift. And, people have said, oh no, there's videos of ships coming into view after they've gone over the horizon. And
Yeah,
and
but they
people have said
haven't.
that, and I've said there isn't.
No.
Please, or rather, show me. I've said show me the video,
Yeah.
and then silence, because they think they've seen it, and what they've seen is all they've seen is people just zooming in on
Yeah.
something that is out of focus and making it in focus. That you're
Yeah.
not bringing, you're not in focus with a sharp horizon. Then you go in more, and suddenly it pops up.
No.
You don't.
That
That
don't happen.
does not exist.
No.
And if so the flat Earth model is that is nighttime is essentially the sun moving so far away that its light fails to reach you and you can't see it. It's still above the flat plane. So
Yeah.
with a P900, after it's set, the instant it is set to the naked eye, and it's just gone below the horizon. As soon as you get your P900 out, you zoom in, you should be able to bring it back.
Yeah.
Have you ever managed to do that, Len?
No. It's a shame that people make these videos because there's loads and loads of videos. It's obviously done just as clickbait. There's loads and loads of videos that people make where they've zoomed into a ship or a sailing ship or something that's on the horizon, and they zoom it in. You zoom out and you can't see it, and you zoom in and you can see it clearly, and you zoom out and you can't see it because it's too far away.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity whilst on that cruise to zoom in and out of on ships that were on the horizon and some that were just below it, where you could see the
Tops,
mast.
mast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can see the waves in
Yeah.
on the horizon in really fine detail.
Yeah.
With one of those P900s, you can actually see the waves in fine detail, and you can see the ship below the horizon in fine detail too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an issue with the zoom lens not being able
No.
to zoom that in enough. But I've tried to. I actually thought that I was a bit naive because I just believed that everyone was misinformed, and I thought that, well, I'll just buy a camera.
Yeah.
I'm going on holiday anyway. It'll be good cameras to have on holiday. I'll buy a camera. I'll make a video, and then everyone will be
That'll be it.
yeah, and that'll be it. The flat Earth is over. But no, it's not a case at all. It's not. They. It doesn't matter when you're dealing with a believer. It doesn't matter what evidence you produce. You
Yeah.
will not turn their mind around.
Yeah.
You cannot, because
Yeah.
they have invested too much in that belief. It's something called initiation investment,
Yeah.
and these flat earthers and any other body that people belong to, where they've put into it a lot of initiation. They've put they've invested a lot into the group to become
Yeah.
part of that group.
Yeah.
They have argued with their family. They've argued with their friends. They've come out and they're in full support of this group, whatever it is they're in, whether it be Flat Earth or any other group, it doesn't matter. But the more you invest in the initiation into the group, the less likely you are to change your mind, because
Yeah.
you've got to go back to all of them people who were telling you were wrong, and you were adamant saying you were right, and I know what I'm talking about. I know I'm right about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very difficult to go back with your cap in your hand and your tail between your legs and say, "Oh, do you know what? When I was talking about that flat Earth stuff, I've actually figured out I was wrong," because you
Yeah.
know that that's going to stay with you for a long time.
Yeah.
People are going to say the Mickey out of you.
Yeah. And they'll
You
lose
know,
respect, and then you have
yeah,
less agency in the world, because you're basically saying I was wrong, so therefore I can't expect you to listen to me in the future, which is
yeah,
something that no one wants, because in our day-to-day lives we want people to listen to us, because we have opinions about how we want to live our lives. We want to look after our children, our families. We want to have a living, make money, whatever it is. Interacting with the world depends upon people respecting you,
yeah,
because if people dismiss you, you're going to struggle.
yeah.
So it is very difficult for people to accept any kind of, or it's very difficult for people to be humble. They're scared of that. So and this is what we see in any kind of cult, really. You invest so much in it, it's very difficult to break out. There's a whole load of reasons why. Um,
It's the first thing a cult tells you, is that everyone else is lying.
yeah,
Yes, that's how
that's
you
right.
become a member.
Yeah,
That's number one rule. Only the cult you only get the truth from the cult, and
yeah,
everyone else is lying.
yeah, yeah,
And then the people that join it, they stop thinking for themselves and
yeah,
investigating, and they resist vehemently. They resist any
yeah, yeah,
information that goes against their cult beliefs.
yeah. And you make connections, and the connections are real, and that's what we crave as humans. We crave connection and family and
Yeah,
community. So if it provides those things, then again you really struggle, because you're going to lose friends.
yeah,
So I mean, I've seen the flat Earth. There's a flat Earth tent at the festival, at the Sounds Beautiful festival, and you could see people, just like all of us at these, when we first came together, the kind of truth the crowd hugging and kissing, and now they've found a small and niche group of
yeah,
friends, and they all it's like, this is my family, this is my flat Earth
yeah,
family,
yeah, yeah,
and it's very, very hard for that to leave that behind, because
yeah.
in essence we value that more than the truth. And in some ways I get that, because we are biologically, we've evolved, it's self-preservation, and you can't necessarily afford to leave your family behind, or to
No,
step out of line.
and then if you swap your family for the new family, the family of the cult,
Yeah,
then you can't you've got even nothing to go back to.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
You've got nothing, because you've left your family and all your friends. They've shunned you because you argued with them so readily about the flat Earth idea,
yeah.
and even if you do discover that it's wrong, you can't admit it to yourself.
No, I mean, look what happened. So there's a guy, for those who are listening, there's a guy called Jaren, who was a big flat earther, and I think yeah. So about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years, 18 months, someone funded a trip to Antarctica,
Yeah, I saw that.
because yeah. So uh, he took with him three flat earthers and three globers,
Yeah,
and it was all paid for, and most of the flat earthers, the big flat earth names, refused to go. Um, Three went. One of them, Jaren, went, and he changed his mind. He said, "Oh
yeah,
no, there is a 24-hour sun down in the South Pole, which makes no sense on a flat Earth model. It
yeah,
can't be the case."
yeah,
And to his credit, he changed his mind, and
yeah,
he had got a huge following. He'd got a lot to lose. He was,
yeah,
he was making money with his videos. He got, I don't know, tens of thousands of followers, maybe even hundreds. Um, and he, I mean, I don't know if you followed his story, but he has been, as you can imagine, Len, you know, blasphemer.
Yeah, yeah.
He has
I
been
thought he was brave
attacked.
for that, actually.
Yeah, I did.
I did have a conversation with another flat earther who changed his mind. And he
Okay,
came out. He came out and said he also had a. It was before that Antarctica expedition, and he
okay,
came out and said, I can't remember what it was that changed his mind now, but he had quite a big following,
right,
and he changed his mind. And I have to say that these people are brave. You know,
yeah,
it's a very brave person that can stand up and say that they were wrong.
yeah. Well, I would encourage anyone, if there are believers out there watching this, and that there's something niggling them. Really, if you're having doubts, just go with it. And it's like the same I say to Christians who have got caught up in that type of cult. Um, your your core beliefs aren't wrong. The essence of what you believe in love and kindness and beauty and doing the right thing and being a good person. And even from my perspective, the deeper stuff, eternal life. I believe that there is so much more to life. You don't have to throw that out. All I would say is use your critical thinking and don't get sucked into this peripheral, superficial dogma,
Yeah.
which is causing so many problems.
Yeah,
Um,
because all religion is built on spirituality. Your spiritual self has really nothing to do with religion, and
no,
you can believe you don't have to stop believing in the spiritual self if you don't believe in any religion. So
yes,
I'm not a religious person, but I am a spiritual person where
yeah,
I believe in my spiritual self
yes,
and the spirit of others.
yeah,
And so I don't need a religion to help me with
no,
that.
no. And the irony is, uh, Christ, even if you take what we have as his words, even if you take them at face value and say, yeah, if we fully attribute them to this character, this historical character, if we accept his historical character, even if you do it, he never said go out and become a Christian, start a
No,
church where you
no.
have a building and you come and you do this and you do
Mm,
that and you do, you know, none of that is there. So,
mm,
I mean, I find all that conversation very interesting as well. I mean, Paul Paul basically became, the New Testament is essentially half of it's about Paul. It's either about Paul or written by Paul. And who was Paul? He never met Jesus. He
yeah,
just had a vision. He had a vision. He could have been off his rocker. He could
yeah,
have had a vision of something that he thought was he just called Christ, and then he believed it so much, people believed him. And I mean, how many cases are there of crazy people who just say they've seen and they become cult leaders? I mean, Koresh,
yeah,
what was it, the ones who all topped themselves because the UFO was or the comet was overhead, a few years
yeah,
back.
yeah,
Um, they thought they were going to get a lift with the comet onto the next plane of existence, so they all
yeah,
killed themselves. Um, People can do crazy things without any evidence.
yeah,
Like a lot of the Christians will say, well, they all allowed themselves to be martyred. Well, one, that's debatable, but even if they did, these guys all topped themselves thinking a comet was going to come and take them up to heaven.
mm,
So it, my thing is, let's just use our heads as well as our hearts. This is where the real knowledge is. I think the intuition, the real truth. But if we don't use this properly with it, we can get lost.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely. And,
and
and and it's easy to get lost because we can see um, so much badness and so many lies going on in the world of political leaders and
yeah,
the people that are in charge of things. All of this stuff is it's really difficult for people to get a handle on what's really going on.
yeah,
And it leads people down the path of discovering what they believe to be truth, and it's not anything to do with the truth at all,
yeah,
because the whole thing is a pack of lies, and
yeah,
it's really quite difficult to figure out. I mean, there's one of the things I was looking at the other day. I saw I am only on Twitter X now because obviously my ban from
Yeah.
Facebook. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have many followers on X because I never really used it much.
Pushed it. Yeah.
But I still do participate in social media on X, and I saw a flat Earth post. I don't get involved with them because I don't want that coming up on my algorithm. But they were talking about how it is that the you don't see why don't you see different stars at different times of the year? Well, actually, you do, and this is again why it is that people don't understand the globe system properly,
No.
because for many thousands of years, astronomers have spoken about star signs. We have them. They're our birth sign.
Yeah.
If you're born in January as Capricorn,
Yep.
or
Yep.
I'm not a star sign person, but we have star signs, and they come about because that's the position of the sun in those months. It moves as the Earth moves around in the different months. So when you look from the Earth, when you look at the sun, the backdrop behind the sun changes,
Yeah.
and it changes throughout the year as the sun moves as the Earth moves around the sun. The star signs change, and that's why we have our star signs. That's what that is. So
Yeah.
our people, it was actually it was one of the people. I was just talking to someone else just recently about Matt Landman. He's quite big in chemtrails at the moment,
Yeah.
and he made a post. Actually, it came up on my Twitter thing. Again recently, nothing to do with Matt Landman, but Matt Landman actually made a post on Facebook a while back, and he was saying the same thing. Well, why is it always the same stars in the sky? And it's
Mm.
not. It's not the same
No.
stars in the sky at all. It's just you got to know how to look at them, and
Yeah.
people don't know how to observe, and this is what is the issue. People don't know how to observe properly. So
Yeah.
they say to you, they always say, "Well, trust your own eyes." Well, yeah, okay, trust your own eyes. Have you ever seen the sun fade off into the distance? No. Have you really ever looked and seen how the star signs operate, and why it is that there's different stars behind the sun?
Mm-hmm.
People don't know how to
Yeah.
observe.
Yeah. They don't. Yeah, you're right. This is a problem.
Yeah.
Um. All right. Well, talking of Matt Landman, we've dived into flat Earth. That's been pretty good. Um. So we'll do another 10 minutes or so, or maybe we'll see how far it goes. But very briefly, um, we should touch on chemtrails. We should touch on Matt Landman. Um, let's go there because you. So this is why you got banned from Facebook, you believe, because of your information on your chemtrails. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I got a couple of petitions actually. Well, it wasn't only the chemtrail one. I produced a couple of petitions and through the government petition forum, and they were um, very uncomfortable for the people, the powers to be, the powers that be. And one of them was about chemtrails. One of them was about not allowing any wars anymore in foreign countries before we have a referendum. And the other one was to stop governments from lying to us about and coercing us and giving us false information, like the Mindspace document, which that came around because of the COVID thing. So there was, and another one about vaccines. The vaccinating while you're pregnant is extremely dangerous. It
Mm,
causes autism in the unborn child. So all of these things, the government petition team were very, um, they they didn't want to allow these petitions. It took me at least 6 months or 8 months to get these petitions through. And I had to send them all sorts of different science studies to prove what it was I was saying was actually true before they would allow them. And once they allowed them, then I started to share them on Facebook. And within no time at all was when they banned me for life. So it wasn't only the chemtrail petition; it was the one asking for a referendum before
Yeah.
we interfered with any other country, so that we could all be in control of our destiny regarding war and
Yeah.
even covert manipulation of other governments.
Yeah.
And there was the other one, as I said, was regarding vaccinating during pregnancy, how it produces a interleukin-6 um, production in the pregnant mother, which causes schizophrenia and autism in the unborn child.
Right.
These are not things that are fringe. They are absolutely grounded in science,
Yeah.
and the scientific evidence is impossible uh, to discount. So they didn't like it, and the only way they tried to stop me getting the petitions through the government petition source, and they couldn't do that. So instead, the only way they could prevent me from going forward was to stop me from showing them to other people by
Yeah. And
banning them from Facebook.
Facebook's
Yeah.
probably one of the best ways, isn't it?
Yeah, so my following on Facebook was just under 7,000. I had just under 7,000 followers, and uh, so I had quite a big, um, quite a big reference that I could go
Yeah.
to.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was members of many
Yeah. Yeah.
vaccine pages and many chemtrail pages, and once I started sharing them, then yeah, that was when I got banned.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah, it's a
So
bit unfortunate.
we won't get into chemtrails because I know you've had a interview with Mike, haven't you? Have you done the interview with
Not
Mike?
yet, no. No,
Not yet. Okay.
I have a website that is
So
worth looking at.
that's what I was
If
going to
it's
say. Len's got a website. It's chemtrails.uk. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Chemtrails.uk. So I'm no expert. I think Len's a good guy. Your take is there a way that you can summarize your take in a kind of layman's terms, or would you rather people just go to the website and have a look?
The website is actually not easy to read because there's a lot of science involved. I've tried to make it so that it can be read by the layperson, but still there's a lot of scientific information that needs to be understood so that you can understand what's going on with chemtrails. But basically, the chemicals are in the fuel. That's not contested. The refineries, the jet fuel manufacturers, and the scientists all confirm that the chemicals are in the fuel. And the chemicals, once they're burnt, they act as hygroscopic ice nuclei, and they attract the moisture unnaturally. And that's why it is that they are able to grow and last much longer now than they used to.
The
That's it
clouds.
in a
The
nutshell.
clouds.
Yeah. There's the trails.
Yeah.
The trails turn into clouds,
Sorry. Yeah. The
and
trails turn clouds. Yeah.
and the and why it is that we see trails in clear blue skies is because the hygroscopic particles scavenge the water vapor directly from behind the engine. The engines produce a massive amounts of water vapor. They literally turn fuel into water, and for every ton of fuel they burn, they produce a ton and a quarter of water. So they actually produce more water than the fuel they're carrying,
Right.
and it's a massive amount of water that comes out the back of the engine, water vapor, and the tiny particles are intrinsically mixed in the exhaust plume because they've come through the engine at such a speed and such a velocity that they are intrinsically mixed. So when the water vapor cools down enough to form droplets, the elements that form the small, tiny little particles are able to attract that moisture and hold it. So, which is why we see a trail directly behind the engine,
Yeah.
because it's actually being made from the water vapor that's coming out of the engine, and then those particles capture the water vapor directly by the engine, and they hold it unnaturally, where normally that water vapor would disperse in low humidity, clear blue skies. What we see from the ground, we see that as we have no way of measuring the humidity from the ground, but we can see
No.
what a clear blue sky looks like. We all know what a clear blue sky looks like, or no clouds, and we see these trails last in clear blue skies, which is not natural.
Okay. So just yeah, won't go into the details, but are you saying there isn't anything nefarious going on, or are you saying it's not as we're commonly told? What's your take on the commonly held conspiracy belief that there's a concerted plan to spray us like bugs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, those ideas often go hand in hand with images of aerodynamic trails. So if you are interested in chemtrails, there's a page on my website that explains what an aerodynamic trail is, and it's um, when an aeroplane wing goes through the sky, it produces a lift and a pressure difference. That's how it flies.
Yeah.
So that pressure difference, if it passes through a very humid area, it's able to encourage the water vapor in that area to produce droplets, water droplets. And that's why you see aerodynamic trails. They come off the wings of the airplanes and not out of the engines.
Right.
So that's where that idea of wing sprayers. That's where
Okay.
that idea
Ah.
comes
Okay.
from.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
they
One
are actually aerodynamic trails.
one thing that I found fascinating, just a little snippet because I didn't take it all in. As I said earlier, my science brain is probably not as sharp as it should be, but there's a little bit of info you wrote about how they studied chemtrails extensively in the Second World War. Is that right? Because
Yeah,
they had to know if a plane was going to how and when a plane was going to leave trails, because
yeah,
obviously they would be visible to the enemy. So
yeah,
if a bomb, if there's a bombing mission, they had to study when and where it would leave trails and where it wouldn't. So there's a whole
yeah.
body of science and study behind that phenomenon, which I haven't dived into on your website, but I do find that interesting.
Yeah, yeah. There's a massive amount of studying has gone into trails in general, because of the war situations. Really, there was no other reason to study them.
No.
They're an atmospheric phenomenon that wouldn't really have garnered much interest,
Yeah.
other than from the military perspective. But once the military got involved, then it became a subject that was understood to a great level. There are hundreds and hundreds of science studies talking about how trails are made. So what happens now is that there is a criteria. They call it the Schmidt and Appleton uh, criteria, which determines when a trail is going to be left and when a trail is not going to be left. So those criteria now they don't apply, because the trails they're finding now in modern times that the trails are being left in places where they believe they shouldn't be, because they're enhanced by the metallic and the tiny elements, the
Right.
tiny contaminants. So regarding are we being sprayed by bugs, like bugs, and is it being done for nefarious reasons? So every jet produces the same contaminants, whether it's making a trail or not. Those contaminants are in the fuel and it's coming out the back of the engine. And a a scientist would say that they're spraying aerosols, but that's scientific language. An aerosol is anything that's in the air, the same as a colloid. The colloidal
Yeah.
is anything in water, in a liquid. So a scientist would say a car going down the road is spraying aerosols. It's not. It doesn't mean that there's tanks full of stuff. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
that. No, and so that's misleading, especially if the that idea of spraying aerosols is put together with a video of an aerodynamic trail with the start and stop very abruptly as the pressure and the humidity difference affects. It's like a rainbow. An aerodynamic trail is like a rainbow in the sky. The aeroplane is going through a very humid area and leaving a rainbow behind it. That's the best way to think of it.
Okay.
But it's not coming out of the engines. And so that's part of the misinformation. But the other thing about whether it's been done on purpose, um, I believe it is being done on purpose. I believe that the contaminants in the fuel, altered in 1995 when they changed the fuel, the way the fuel was refined. They um, used the sludge at the bottom when they get the oil. They crack it into different um, forms, whether it
Yeah.
be diesel or jet engine or jet fuel or petrol. They warm it and they heat it at the bottom, and all of the good stuff comes off at different levels. And what's left at the bottom is the sludge that used to be thrown away or used
Tarmac.
tarmac and asphalt and all of the stuff
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
worth no money. But
Yeah.
also at the bottom in that stuff is all the contaminants is concentrated in that sludge at the bottom. And now they've figured out a way of further refining that sludge and making it into good grade jet fuel.
Oh.
But when they do that, along with the good grade jet fuel comes some of the contaminants that have been concentrated in that sludge, and also silicon is a main um, one of the main ingredients in the trails is silicon, and silicon is used in the secondary refining procedures as an anti-foaming agent, and the oil industry and the fuel industry have now got a silicon problem. It's contaminated the fuel, and it's causing issues with the engines and the other things that they put. So the silicon issue, they call it the silicon problem, is a big problem.
Okay.
And the trails that come out the back of the engines have been studied by science for many years. There's a nice science study by Abby Glenn, and Abby Glenn ran a jet engine on the floor and captured the stuff that came out the back. And he found that 60% of the solid contaminants was silicon. And you've got these trace elements, the metallic trace elements, form the initial core, and then the silicon wraps itself around to make the particle get larger and larger until it becomes big enough that it can then capture the water vapor from the engine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's quite
So
a complicated process.
yeah. Are we?
Uh,
Is the question there then similar to the question with something like food, where one could either argue, is it I suppose the question is conspiracy or um cock up, or financial interests, or so with food, for example, we might get MSG in the food because it makes food more sellable because it tastes good, but it's
yeah,
detrimental to our health.
yeah, exactly.
Um, are we talking about a similar kind of thing here, rather
Yeah,
than because with the food debate, you could have two people who are looking for the truth, and one of them sits more in the camp of, well, it's financial reasons, but the end result is that people are sick because they're not getting nutritious food. Um, or you could sit in the camp of, well, it's by design. They're trying to kill us for various reasons, depopulation, etc., etc. And you could probably present arguments for both cases, but I think would you say that the chemtrail debate sits somewhere in there where it's hard
Yeah,
to know?
exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, the chemicals are in there. Everyone knows they're there, and everyone knows what they do. There's many studies that have studied the hygroscopic properties of the particles. It's not denied in any way. So, but you can't say that they're doing it on purpose to make the trails, because the reason they're actually doing it is to make jet fuel cheaper, so we can go on holiday and we don't have to pay so much money for our tickets.
Okay.
So it's the same thing. It's a plausible deniability thing,
Yep.
where how can you prove something like that? You can't prove
Yeah.
that, because you've got to prove intent of an individual who's in
Yeah.
control,
Yeah.
and the way they set up the governing bodies that control the quality of the food and the jet fuel. These governing bodies are set up so that there is no one person who can be blamed for any of this stuff that goes on.
Yeah. So I know when I interviewed Mike Robinson from the column, and he said, look, with this debate, if you've got a bunch of people screaming, and I use the word screaming because it tends to be an emotional subject, understandably, if you believe that, but screaming that we're being sprayed like bugs, and then you've got a bunch of people over here saying, no, it's just normal, it's just perfectly normal, it's just contrails.
Yeah,
Then those you've got two camps, and the truth maybe is somewhere here, but it
yeah,
never really gets found because
yeah,
each camp is dismissing each other,
yeah,
and you just this constant, and nothing ever changes. Whereas what perhaps you would say, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but what it seems, and what I think what Mike was getting at is, if the truth is somewhere in the middle, um, the only way we're going to change things, because the the practical result is that people, it's detrimental to health. So that's,
yeah.
these chemicals are being sprayed, there's air pollution landing on the crops, etc. That isn't going to change if both parties are out here, you know, screaming,
Arguing with each other.
arguing with each other,
Yeah,
rather than
absolutely.
getting into the nuts and bolts of the
Yeah,
truth, which it seems like you're doing to me. But
yeah,
obviously, like I said, I'm not a scientist. I haven't dived fully in, but you seem totally genuine. It seems to make a lot of sense to me, and intuitively it makes sense.
yeah. Well,
So
that was the idea of the petition. The petition, the chemtrail petition that I raised, was to ask the government to assess the changes in fuel composition,
yeah,
and to implement the mitigation strategies that we can implement tomorrow. Just by flying the aeroplanes, changing their routes just slightly, not a lot. It's not going to put loads of money, and it's not going to cause on the air tickets. It's not going to put loads of money on the air tickets, and it's not going to change the length of time that people are in the air. It's really, you don't have to change the flight paths by very much at all to miss the humid areas of the sky, so that they don't leave trails. It's really quite a simple thing. There's been loads of science studies talking about how to do that for many years, decades. They've
right,
been talking about how to do that. So that's what the petition was about: changing the routes to mitigate the trails and
right,
to address the changes in the fuel composition.
okay, all right. Well, I think what we on nearly an hour and a half. I thought this
Oh,
might
okay.
only be about half an hour. This
Yeah,
was my plan.
time's gone quite quick.
It's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, I've loved it. I've loved chatting about flat Earth because I just find it fun. And the last half an hour talking about chemtrails has been really interesting, really illuminating, and I'm sure a lot of people will find that really useful as a framework. Not no one's. I'm certainly not saying I know what's going on. You seem very knowledgeable. I would suggest people go to your website if they're interested, if they've got an open mind and they want to see a different perspective, or um, find some kind of balance maybe. This is thing that's coming up for me more and more, is finding balance, and I think that
Yeah,
balance is the hardest thing to find for a lot of people because it's
yeah,
so easy to get thrown out to extremes, and I think quite often That's where the real power lies, is having that strength to sit grounded in a kind of, not a compromised position, but just a nuanced position. So I'd definitely encourage everyone to visit your website, chemtrails.uk.
Yeah.
And maybe we can have another chat, maybe when I'm a bit more clued up. I know you're going to be on UK column at some point, and I think Mike's probably a good person to pose more pertinent questions than me. But keep your eyes out, everyone, if you want to follow Len's work there.
Yeah,
And
if anyone wants to talk to me about the things that are on the website, they can find me on X. Len Duggan MH.
Len Duggan MH.
Yep.
All right, I'll put a link in anyway.
Okay, thanks.
All right,
So
fantastic, Len.
I like the idea of being able to help people find reality of the truth. The truth is out there, and it's sometimes difficult to navigate to find it. So we're all in the same boat. When I started off investigating chemtrails, I started in the same place as everyone else, believing that we're being sprayed, believing that the ballast tanks in the aeroplanes that test new aeroplanes, I believe that those were the spray tanks holding the chem juice. We all start in the same place, and so there's no embarrassment about getting things wrong, as far as I'm concerned.
No.
We all start in the wrong place, and it's only by investigating and talking things through with people that we can actually discover the truth together.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great end to the conversation, Len. All right.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jake. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. I'll see you very soon.
Yeah, for sure.